Impact, to try and beat this kind of deck, he really has to just remove the threats from RDU early and also stay on top of the board himself. He can't just play, I would say, even with this Druid. I think he will have to like almost dominate the board in this game.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. Like, if your opponent's making stuff as the Druid, you don't know if they've got the buffs or not, so you have to kill their things. Even if they don't have actually a way to kill you next turn, they've just got a board of 1/1s that isn't doing much. You don't know that, unfortunately.
And already as we get diving into this game, there are these options right here, right now for RDU to go Gibbling, Coin, Nature Studies. Maybe he gets something else he can cast, but also then follow up with Dreamway Guardians. The only problem is the Gibbling unbuffed as a 1/1. The one that actually generates more would just die to the dagger. So we see RDU just taking a slightly slower approach, but when I say slightly slower, he's still putting his foot down on the pedal here, as you can see.
Yeah, you say this is slow. I don't want to see the fast starts, honestly, because this is terrifying right at the start. That's almost game over. However, Impact has Foxy Fraud in hand and a load of zero-cost stuff of his own. And that can develop very rapidly into a big problem for your opponent if you get some stuff to go with it nicely.
It really can. He does need, say, one of those cards that actually is like activate Shadow Step. You can see now Foxy Fraud. It is doing a job of corrupting that Nitro Boost poison in hand, but really it's going to just be batted aside by RDU. The Lunar Eclipse going to take it out. Then, because of the reduction on Bless of Ancients, he gets to buff the board, and already it's just not looking good for Impact. None of these cards matter. Nitro Boost, who cares if his attack does 1,000,000 damage? He can only swing his weapon once.
Yeah, direct Jeer, if you're watching, this is how it's done, right? You just put your stuff on the board and you hit each other with it. None of this messing around, healing your face stuff.
I think of all people, those two know casting Apex that is how it's done. I think you should just have a word with the players bringing Priest, honestly, around there. But that is one of the cards. The Prize Plunderer, Impact can maybe do enough here to at least survive the next turn or so.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Plunderer is even in question as a good card, or as a card that you put in the deck. It's not in question as a good card. Like, it is so absurd with Shadow Step that I'm amazed something will cut this card.
And although now Impact has, I don't really want to use the word stabilized, but he has not died this turn. But the problem is, you can see the quality of his hand is just non-existent, right? One Nitro Boost poison plus one card off the top. It would probably have to be I don't know, something to get like a Miscreant active, if he could even get hold of that. Oh, that's funny. He does have to aim the Nitro Boost at the minion, but this does, again, give him something that he could get with the help of his lackeys.
Yeah, and Impact does like this style of play. He's been, as I said, on the verge of Grandmasters basically since the thing started, and he's usually preferred quick decks. He can play a slower style, but he likes the sort of aggro/tempo style. So all these sort of nuanced attempts to get out of trouble are things that he's very familiar with, hence the fast play.
I think here, I really like Adorable Infestation and Soul of the Forest here from RDU. That might look a little bit weird, but I think because he has Savage Roar and Solar Eclipse, all he needs is something to stick on the board. And the 4/3 and a 1/1 that then Death Rattle into the 2/2s, the Treants, I think it gives him the best chance to stick something next turn.
Yeah, I just want to just keep playing stuff here as RDU. I don't want to give Impact a second to have a good turn. It can change pretty quickly. You don't know what that lackey is, for instance. We can see it's only a Faceless, which might actually be okay. But
yeah, he does go for the Soul of the Forest. There are other options. He could go Rising Winds, but if he had Fungal Fortunes, I could see him maybe slowing down the game to get that Fungal down and then start going wide with more minion generation, because minions are what RDU is lacking right now, as Impact actually does, I guess, arguably take control of the board. He has more stuff. It's just whether he's going to live long enough to see it do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the power of this rogue deck. Like, it looked like he was dead on turn 1. His hand emptied on, turn 4? And here we are. Suddenly he's got the board. He's got a Wand Thief. He's got a Miscreant. Stuff can happen. He's probably not quite going to save it, but it's ridiculous how good this rogue deck can be.
But this is what I was saying right at the start, Lorinda. If you leave almost anything up at this point in the game, Solar Eclipse, Savage Roar does just cause huge problems here. Or just Savage Roar if you don't want to bother with Solar Eclipse, that's fine. That is going to be the lethal damage required there, and RDU will even it up against Impact, taking the series to 1-1 so far, and that's just the problem when you have that kind of opening, because you can see, Lorinda, if that opening was slower from RDU and Impact hit that point in the game it ended with those kind of minion base, suddenly not only does RDU have to generate a wide board, but also make it stick, which without those would cost way more mana. He would need to, have a 10 mana turn also. So a pretty close one, honestly.
Yeah, one of the interesting things with this meta, as we see the bans at the bottom there, is it really is ban rogue or ban priest, but they're so different to each other that your lineups can diverge massively from that point. And then you concentrate on the other things. But also with this meta, I'm finding that there are very few really polarized matchups. There's one or two, as always, but we're going to see a lot of sort of long, drawn-out minion exchanges all day, I think.
And that is one of those games, not only against Druid, but with Impact's hand, with a double Nitro boost against a token deck, where I think Impact's just going to be like, okay, those happen. Sometimes you draw a bit dead, and then your opponent doesn't. And in such an aggressive deck with that Druid, that's just going to be a loss. But there's plenty of time for him to come back. He does have his Warlock and Rogue, which for Impact is going to be the Zoo Warlock, so another aggro deck. And of course, the Rogue we did just see him play with the form of that World Kick. Whereas RDU, another player, Lorinda, who's bringing a fairly aggressive lineup with this, I guess, Pain Warrior of old, it feels like, talking about Pain Warrior right now.
Yeah, I might be doing him a disservice here. RDU is a very hard worker and so on, but he's not played the most constructed in recent times. I'm sure he will do before Grandmasters with the new sets and everything. But these feel like comfort picks to me. Again, I may be wrong, but they're decks that he knows inside and out from previous metas with not many changes. And I feel that he's just going for what he knows so that he didn't have to overwork on this particular tournament.
Yeah, and I do think, I know Derek and Gia were talking about it, what feels like much earlier on today, where they were saying like this meta specifically for this Masters Tour is a bit crazy. I've said multiple times in the past few weeks, I don't even know where I'd start to approach it, because you can almost bring anything. Every class is going to be represented. There are tons of archetypes within those classes. So I can see that RDU's just gone for, you know what, it might not be exact deck lists, but I'm just going to play archetypes that not only I think are good, but also work together. And you can see in this lineup, it is fairly aggressive with this, the Rogue, the Zoolock, the Pain Warrior, and that Token Druid. So RDU going for that aggressive approach. We are going to dive back into it. Him on the bottom, of course, on that Warrior, and Impact is going to lock in the Rogue once again.
Yeah, and this draw from both players, actually, an interesting one. RDU just picking up all the combo pieces, which you don't particularly want in your opening hand. If you want to call it a combo, it's not really a full-on combo deck anyway, of course. And Impact has got one of those hands that could very quickly just go completely off the charts. Now he's picked up the Foxy. I was going to say he needs one final piece, but that was the final piece. And now look how this turn goes crazy.
Yeah, and one thing that really interests me when I watch good players play this Rogue deck is when they actually choose to use World Kickmaster, because it is not straightforward. Sometimes you need to put it down to maybe get the minion on board and activate a combo, right, and generate a small amount of cards, but other times you can generate whole hands worth. It's kind of absurd, so we'll see how it plays out. But Impact, this is a lightning round, Lorinda, because he is off to the races. Tons of damage coming out from that Nitro boost, and it's definitely on RDU right now to fight back and try and stabilize this board.
Yeah, I feel like this Warrior deck is as much tempo as it is control, so the Rogue can't just mess around. But against the slower decks, the Rogue definitely sits and waits to play the World Kick, and then just floods the board and fills up their hand all in one go. And that way they can have back-to-back turns of, okay, you need to deal with this, and when you've dealt with this, you've got to deal with this again next turn. Good luck. But again, against Warrior, you can't necessarily hold back everything for too long, so it will be interesting to see when Impact does commit.
Nice little bonus there from RDU, proccing the Spell Burst on his weapon, because that was going to happen anyway. He was always going to draw the cards, meant that he could clear the board up and at least remove the options there for Impact. But as ever with Warrior, Lorinda, I think RDU is just looking for a risky skipper, because look at his hand. He has everything he needs to start really popping off in the next, 2 turns or so, if he can get hold of a risky skipper.
Yeah, you're always looking for the skipper or the armor smith, one or the other. Yeah. And this is the I'm looking for my skipper game, and no way of fetching it at the moment. But like you say, he's got everything else. He will get a million armor and clear the boards. If he doesn't lose the board, this is not a bad sort of set of pirates to at least try to hang on for a moment.
I love the way we see the pause there, because I think Impact was looking at this Kobold lucky to play out and then realized, oh wait, Brightwing just gave me Tog. Hang on a minute. Do I just have a new plan? Are we going even further back in Rogue meta styles here?
Made to fit.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me that we've got to this part of the metagame and somehow it's opened up. Like, normally you get to the last 2 weeks before the new set and most people are like fed up of it. No matter how much you love the game, you get to the last 2 weeks, you're like, I want the new set right now. But actually, for tournaments at least, there's so much going on in terms of how to build a lineup for so deep into the tournament. And yet all the decks are decks we are used to and familiar with, like you say with that Tog. We've seen all this before in various forms. But somehow it's hanging in there as a meta that just hasn't quite been solved.
Yeah, and it looks like now Impact did choose to kill the Warlock Challenger with the Flake instead of the Armor Smiths, which would have been a problem either way, but now the Armor Smiths, because they're buffed and duplicated, are going to help RDU recover some of the damage he took early on. And now, look at this board. How does Impact even fight back? That Tog, he might not even have time at this point.
Well, you asked how does he fight back just as he drew a questing adventurer. That seems like a good starting point, but yeah, even if RDU doesn't win with the minions on the board right now, the armor he's going to gain from them existing is going to buy him so much time towards getting some sort of lethal combination.
Yeah. And this is nice. He can trade away one, use his weapon. He can just ping off the shield if he wants with this Kobold Lackey, and then he follows up with an Eviscerate as well. He can still do that, which is why I like the order in here. He can play the One Thief, see what options he has for, from Mage. There's a lot of freeze, transform effects, like Devolving Missiles would be insane. But he's going to see that it's Blizzard is the choice for him. So he still has that backup plan of Kobold into Eviscerate. Get rid of the big threats. The questing, he probably doesn't expect the questing to live this turn, honestly, but it could be a huge bonus if it does.
Yeah, and next turn everything just starts to go World Kick crazy, so he's challenging RDU to miss a turn to kill off this questing here. And when that turn is missed, Impact then has the backup plan of, okay, here's plan 2 or 3 or whatever we're up to, and you're starting to run out of ways to answer these plans.
Spin like the suns. Strike like
Yeah, although
the wind.
RDU has got
Spin
hold
like
of these
the
risky
suns.
skippers, it really does
Strike
look like
the
he needs the Battle Rages in his deck to just refill the hand, refill the options. But now we see those World Kicks come down. I guess the card that's named the deck, I suppose. A lot of people refer to this as World Kick Rogue. And look at these resources, Lorinda. They might not be the best cards, but there are a lot of cards.
They're cards, yeah, and he hasn't even been that greedy. It's just play my World Kicks, cast 2 combo cards. Now look at me go. Like, he's forced another response from RDU. This is going to empty out RDU's hand. And then Impact, who has been gathering resources for a while, and this Blizzard's going to look pretty decent as well, by the way, is on the way to just starting to occupy the board. And when the Warrior starts running low on cards, this particular Warrior anyway, it really finds it hard to do those last pieces of damage.
Yeah, and also Blizzard into Perdition's Blade could be really nice here. Gets the weapon active. I'm interested to see where he puts the damage. Okay. Purely because, because he has the Kidnapper, there might be some merit to like plan on, say, dealing with a minion like that instead, but
I think he's just going full on like resource war here. He knows that as long as he's on a 12 or 13, let's say, or more, he's probably quite safe in the medium term, and he's just going to have a big board in 2 or 3 turns' time. So he's just forcing RDU to run out of cards for now.
Again, interesting.
Garbage now, though.
Yeah, I like this from RDU. I was just going to mention, I don't actually think RDU has any pirates left in the deck anyway. So I think I like getting this minion down, protecting the Blood Boil Brute, and just getting a little bit more damaging weapon available to him.
Give me that. Look what I won.
Plunderer just doing the thing that it does, killing off 2 stuffs.
Give me that.
So nutty.
A little shadow can go a long way.
Oof.
Yeah, it's that whole combination of things that turn. And this is why I like all the 0-cost cards in this deck. You can just use them to do more than how they look. Like, you think about dropping prep because it's not that good, but you actually miss out on so many other things you can do.
And this is like even a deceptively close game. It looks like RDU is really far behind, but I believe he does have a Corcoran left. He's used one, but I think he's got the second one. And there is a huge health advantage here for RDU. That is going to melt away, of course, as Impact continues to keep hold of this board. So probably good for RDU he didn't end up playing a minion this turn, because that Trampling Rhino would have pushed tons of extra damage. But still, this is still going to be a close one. Secret Passage going to come down for Impact, looking for maybe a little bit more oomph from his turn.
Yeah, some oomph or a Titanic Lackey somehow would be nice. If you could just put a bit of taunt. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Now he can get some taunt from the Jandis. A little bit of taunt would save him so much health right now.
Or just set up counter-lethal, right? He probably isn't expecting to die this turn.
What?
Sure.
He's getting close. There are some really good Jandis minions. And those are not quite them.
No. But, yeah, there's still a lot of numbers on the board right now, and RDU currently has no way to deal with a lot of numbers.
So, RDU pretty much needs a minion here. They still killed 4 minions off the board, confirmed. If he can just play any minion.
Any offers?
Oh, so he's going to have to Battle Rage. He just has to.
Yep.
Oh, any other minion would have made this turn so much better, because he would have not only been able to still do the cleanup on the board, or the majority of it, but he would have got such a better Battle Rage off afterwards.
I mean, he's actually currently just facing lethal with a poison in Impact's hand. It's just going to die, so he really needs to work this out, RDU. And yeah, Battle Rage
he just has to. Yeah,
keeps you alive, and that might not be it.
Oh, okay. So the only thing he was probably thinking about was whether he equips Reaper Scythe first.
Yeah,
because then the Battle Rage would activate Reapers. He could still do it, but it would obviously just be a little bit more ineffective. So he can go Reapers Nitro Boost Poison.
I think he has to. I mean, he doesn't know that. We can see it's lethal, but he can't see that. He might have to just hope that Impact doesn't somehow have it in this Rogue deck that has infinite damage.
And oh god, this placement as well is actually a little bit tricky for the Reaper Scythe as well. I think you'd have to kill the 2/5.
This is just lethal, right?
He has 25, there's 5 to...
It's dead on, I think.
Yeah, it is, yeah. He just needed a little bit more damage, the weapon and the Nitro Boost. He's going to have...
Radu would have known that was a risk he was taking. That's what the long pause is about. Do you try and kill Impact, or do you protect against the poison? And he chose, okay, the only way I ever win this is if he doesn't have it and I draw lethal next turn. That was the way he chose to go with it.
And that was just a really tough game there for RDU. Again, if he'd drawn any other minion, not only would he been able to draw more cards with that Battle Rage, but he would have cleaned up so much of the board, because 2 of those minions would have died because they're the Jandis clones. 2 of the other minions, Jandis and the 2/1, would have died to the 1 AoE. It would have looked like potentially a very different game, but it does mean that Impact is now leading the way 2-1, and he does just have that Warlock left. But you can see here, Impact's sheer aggression early on really did pay off, as he just put enough damage on the board, even through 2 of those Armor Smiths.
Yeah, I think the nice part of this game was taking that Blizzard. Just had the foresight to realise that he was going to have to face a board he didn't like at some point. So he took the Blizzard so that when that point arrived, he was ready for it. And that just allowed him to slowly turn it back in his favour.
Yeah, and also the Shadow Sculptor from the World Kick Rogue helping it, drawing Impact tons of cards because he got to use the Shadow Step on the same turn. So looked really good there, but overall just RDU not quite getting what he needed to. I think he got Ankar, got 1 swing out of it and didn't really have any more Pirates left. Needed to replace it with a Taunt minion, and it all went downhill from there. But again, tough matchup, but RDU is still in it. Just a reminder, this is still a match from round number 1. I believe the round is just getting ready to start off round number 2, but we're going to finish up this match before we get into it. And there's more rounds where that came from, Lorinda.
Yeah, we absolutely have to just keep everyone informed of their fantasy standings, right? Show a few more games so people can keep an eye on their players.
Yeah, I need to check mine. I've not even looked at mine yet, so I'm excited to do that. Impact, this is his zoo list that he does have left, and this was a bit of a surprise for me, Lorinda. I know this deck has existed for a while now, but I didn't expect to see as much of it submitted for this tournament that has been. I think this is pretty well represented, or more so than I imagined.
In the last 2 or 3 days on Ladder, watching the top legend people streaming, Zoo and Secret Rogue both had a suspicious amount of play. Now, Secret Rogue doesn't seem to have really got to the tournament, but there's a decent amount of Zoo turned up, and I agree with you. I didn't expect to see like almost any Zoo. And I just realised, hang on, where's this coming from? Why are people suddenly all playing Zoo on ladder? And I realised, yeah, they're testing for this tournament, or they've got it from someone who wants them to test for this tournament, more likely. Because obviously you're not going to stream yourself testing for the tournament. That would be unusual. And yeah, I'm not totally shocked, but up until 2 days ago, it wasn't on my radar at all as a deck that was any good. But you get to ban Rogue, which helps a little bit, of course.
Yeah, and also when you are going into a tournament, you do, especially if you like this kind of thing, you look at what an aggro lineup could look like, or how aggro you can go, I guess. And Zoo is one of those ones that I don't think for a while it's been the best deck, but it's always been good. You know, it always does that Zoo job, right? Start stacking up a board early. The board then probably compounds on itself with AoE buffs and just high pressure with rush minions as well. And we'll see how it performs here, but I will say, Lorinda, Pain Warrior is a tough one for this deck just because it has access to so much removal as well as that armor gain along with AoE from the Risky Skipper.
Yeah, if you can AoE 2.5 Zoo boards away, you're pretty much set. The first board shouldn't be an issue. It can be, obviously, because they're sometimes quite chunky minions. But after that, if the warrior starts to set in, it should be okay. But Zoo's so big, so quick these days. Look at this already. It's turn 2.
And we see the respect as well. Impact chose to get rid of basically an on-curve play for next turn because he realizes the Armor Smith would just kill the 1/1 anyway, so there's one less target for the buff. And then he needs something to deal with this Armor Smith, but RDU committing, saying, no, this Armor Smith is going to be your demise with the damage and then the Shield of Honor as well. So this is going to be a huge problem here for Impact to try and deal with.
Yeah, and RDU does have all the perfect backup to continue now. With this War Maul, he's just going to insert 6 points of Armor Smith into Impact's face. There you go. 6. Hurts. Just perfect for the Warrior. Nicely worked out here by Radu.
Yeah, and now Nightshade Matron is going to be able to draw Impact some cards just to keep that card count high in the hand. But the question's sort of rises now. Does he actually trade into the War Maul to stop the potential buffing and copying of that, or does he just take the hit, basically trade into the Armor Smith? It's a horrible trade, but the Armor Smith has already done so much, it's going to be a horrible trade anyway, right? And you just deal with it. It's a tough call.
The trouble is, if you take another 6, you're kind of getting into one Cork on one mercenary kills you, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to take the chance that this doesn't get copied, because if it does get copied, you are in so much trouble, and it is going to get copied.
Your flaws are your strength.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one, especially because RDU isn't exactly all in with this either. He has the Corsair Cash, which is going to help him get hold of a weapon, which, as you quite rightly pointed out, Impact's received so much damage already. Zoo generally damages itself anyway, that just drawing almost any weapon now might just be enough to push this game over the edge.
So there's a Flesh Giant, but I was always taught if you don't know how to deal with something, just ignore it and hit them in the face. And I quite like just hitting Impact in the face here.
So I believe now RDU will guarantee draw Reaper's Scythe because of that Ankar. I do like the Ankar used here because it will get him to that, the risky skippers as well, or even the Sword Eaters, which are pretty important as well. Taunts and a weapon in one minion, and Impact is just pretty much dead at this point.
Yeah, how do you deal with an 8/8 and get it off the board? Well, you blow your opponent's portrait up, and then the 8/8 leaves. It's a troublesome minion, but it's going to do nothing here.
Yeah, I think Impact basically needed a Broom there. I think he needed Broom to then go the Moag to be able to give some lifesteal and do something from that play. So I definitely think he looked for a play there. He wasn't just live tapping and just assuming he was going to die, but it wasn't going to be enough. And this series has gone to a game 5 probably as quickly as that Priest game got to turn 7. So we'll see how this one continues, as there's only one more left, and Impact is going to be on that Zoo once again.
Yeah, that Armor Smith just did all that early damage, bit of healing, couple of attacks to face, took away some minions as well, but got it done basically solo.
Yeah. And it was good heads-up play from RDU, knowing that Zoo, outside of the Matron, doesn't really have any reactive ways to deal with a threatening minion. They rely on being on board already, right, and having the minions already there. So RDU did a good job to push him off the board, so it looked pretty good there. But it does look like we are going to have a Warlock mirror, and we're going to check out RDU's Zoo list, which I don't want to, assume here, but it looks very close to card for card the same as Impact.
It's really close. He has a Soulfire instead of one of the Matrons, and he has a Cult Neophyte because he's leaving Rogue up, which Impact is not. Instead of something else that I did know and I no longer do.
Yeah, there's also the where are we looking at? Impact actually only has one expired merchant, whereas RDU going for I guess a more previously standard 2 expired merchants in there, but we'll see how it plays out because only one Nightshade Matron from RDU. The card is pretty impactful in these mirror style matches where you are fighting for the board constantly. Unless one player has no minions on board, you won't really see that many attacks to face until the game ends, I think.
Yeah, it's just going to be trade, hit you for 20 is the most likely solution to this one, but we will obviously see. Maybe someone will get a chunky 5 in at some point to swing the balance in their favour, but let's see how this goes. And it goes with Impact straight up with a Flame Imp, one of the better cards you can get against the mirror.
Yeah, but RDU has a fantastic response with the Coin Canrathed, which then reduces his demons by 1. And guess what? His own Flame Imp cost 1, which now means 0. So already RDU getting that one step ahead. We'll draw your attention to, though, Impact does have Broom right now. So he could even go for like Spirit Jailer, Broom, trade, say, the Broom and the Imp first, then raise Dead, and then trade the Spirit Jailer.
Yeah, and how close is he at that point to just playing the Giant? That's a lot of damage you're talking about there.
And that's just one option. He could... he could play it slower. He has the ability to do that, but it feels brave. I think, personally, I would be afraid of this board right now of RDU already being ahead and potential follow-ups, that I would commit to this play.
I like it.
See if he orders this raised Dead or not. I'm guessing he will, right? He'll want the Broom back because he has a Giant.
Yes.
And he'll want the Flaming back because it's the biggest minion?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Absolutely. So it's about, will that Giant get down in time versus RDU's slightly more traditional curvy minions?
Yeah, Impact does get a bit of a breather here and at least some knowledge of, okay, the duplicates are going to be the Manari Moshers. And again, although that minion is good, it's only good if you already have the board. And because this expired merchant is relatively slow compared to the first turn, it does give Impact time to fight back.
Yeah, and Impact choosing to weave in the tap there because it sets up his Giant for next turn. And obviously an 8-8 versus these little minions is just a great spot to be in.
Oh, I think I keep calling it Manari, sorry. I'm just so used to Demon Hunter with Moags. I'm like, every demon is a Moag something or other now. And it's just not.
Well, he can kill this off, but it's such an expensive thing to have to do if he wants to go for this. With the Manari and the Soulfire, it's just not pleasant.
Wait, can't he Manari Wicked Whispers? I think I like that better.
Yeah, that's definitely better.
Because then he keeps another Manari. He keeps the Wriggling Horror, definitely, because Wicked Whispers, discard your lowest cost, which would be the Soulfire.
Unless he just feels he wants to.
Oh no, I'm being stupid. That only puts him 7, doesn't it? It won't be enough. He has to Soulfire.
7's kind of like 8.
Lorinda, I'm going to pitch you a crazy idea.
Go for it.
What if he just goes face?
That's where he's going.
Yeah, just kill him. Look at the health difference.
You're going to be pitching crazy ideas to me all weekend, aren't you? Without Sottle here to tell you you're crazy. You're just going to go wild.
I pitch them to Sottle when I know he will laugh at me. So if there's any percentage chance you won't, I'm already ahead, Lorinda. I'm already feeling great, so...
Yep. I'll ease into it. I'll get more confident and start laughing at you by about Sunday, I should imagine. Anyway, Radu's gone face and he's still on 30. But Impact does have a lot going on this turn that can help change the board. He's also seen that Soulfire get pitched, which is a big deal, I think, there.
Yeah,
That's the only Soulfire in Radu's deck, so his Impact seeing it go means he's safer than he might look.
and this is the payoff for Impact, right? The way he did the Raised Dead, he guarantees the Broom, and this just makes these turns just flip on their head, and now Impact suddenly has control of this game, but without that kind of turn from him, you can see Radu's mindset, right? Yes, Impact has a big Giant, but if Radu's got the health advantage and has a wide board, then the Giant you would assume has to trade, and it's only one minion. But the Broom and the extra, sprinkling of other minions from Impact has really pulled him back in this game.
Yeah, and 14 is enough health that he can still tap if he needs to. If he's a little bit lower, that number would be terrifying.
Yeah. And he has his Minari of his own now, so he can actually heal back up if a demon sticks.
Yeah, that would be nutty as well if he gets to do that.
And the big difference here, just lack of Broom. And it is often the case in these minion-focused sort of trade matchups, where if you don't have a Broom and your opponent does, you can't snap back. And it's going to be a huge problem here.
Impact actually taking time to think for like the second time this match. The rest of the time it's just been autopilot for him almost. Things that he's seen so many times he doesn't need to reprocess.
His decision paid off, and he was thinking about this. At worst, he could Minari, then do Merchant and get the double Revenants in the Merchant, or he could tap, see what's what, and go from there. And wow, it paid off perfectly as he got to draw more cards. There's a 0-mana Giant. He could still get a Broom if he wanted to for maybe next turn. Doesn't get it.
A little agony goes a long
Is this turn ever going to end? That is the question. He has done a lot of things this turn already, considering he's not a rogue at this point.
Yeah, and look at this. Happily trades the massive Giant away because it doesn't matter, like we said, that whoever wins board in this matchup wins the game. And as you can see, Impact is demolishing the board here. RDU concedes, and that's going to be a Lorinda.
Yep, and not a huge amount to say about that one, but Impact did decide to give up the board and go quite low on health to get that Giant online, and he must have known that RDU can ignore it and go face. That's kind of how you get around an 8-8. But he judged that really well. He took a moment, he tapped, he got the Giant online for the turn after, and 2 turns later, suddenly he's got a monster board because the Giant has done so much work.
And this was, honestly, this response to RDU's incredible Canrithad turn on turn 1 is huge, because the difference in having that Broom, as I mentioned, is everything, because all your minions gain rush, and in this minion-focused matchup, that's all that matters, that you can fight for board. So really, really good start there for Impact. I know you'll be seeing much more of Impact this year, of course, but I think his enthusiasm for the game it will never be questioned, right? He is all about it, and has been for a long time now.
I mean, he was going